All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 65 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Julian, the admin on the KissFAQ message board. And joining me today, Mark is almighty. Mark, welcome back.
Hello, sir.
Lonnie, stranger. Good to see you again.
Thank you, sir.
And well, of course, St. Louis Kiss. And Ken, 69th Blizzard.
Hello.
Welcome back, gentlemen, for another fun-filled episode where we annoy people. Quickly, though, that music that everyone else just heard listening to the show is the new theme tune, so big props to you, Mark, for putting that together for us. That's a vast improvement on my electric noodling. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that, and listen to the rest of it at the end of the show, because we use half of it for the intro, half for the outro. So thank you, Mark.
Not a problem. Thank you.
So the topic today kind of grows out of last week's episode. I think an off-the-cuff comment was made about Peter, and that's Peter Criss, that someone took to be an insult. And it raises the question, do the different members of KISS, and throughout the history, do they get treated differently from one another? Do certain members get a pass? And other than Tommy Thayer, do certain members always, seem to get bagged on? Because, of course, no one bags on Tommy, no one ever has. So it's a little bit about, are we treating the members of the band we profess to be fans of fairly? And that's a general statement for everyone out there. And I'm going to, just kick it open and say, yeah, Peter is sometimes a very easy target. God bless him. He's a fantastic person. What he contributed to the band in the 70s in particular. And I will also say on the reunion tour, where he really worked hard and had to work a lot harder than the others, being a drummer and hitting stuff for that whole show, and also being older than the other guys. So I always saw him as something of an MVP in that era. But in the original era, obviously he was the backbone and he was on fire. You go back and listen to any of those recordings, and for those of you fans who are old buggers who actually got to see him back then rather than on video, know that he was absolutely a wild man behind the kit until maybe 76, mid-76. And then things started going down. But yes, I think he's a very easy target these days since he's essentially retired. He's dropped from sight. He doesn't have a lot of interaction with the fans. A lot of it isn't very, kind of positive in a sense that you'll only see him if you go to some obscure Comic Con and you get to see him, a couple tables down from Attila the Hun or something. Some guy who used to play Frankenstein in a theme park.
Half the cast of House of 1,000 Corpses.
Yeah, to that effect, and maybe that's kind of where it comes from. That it's like Peter Criss, I think everyone respects as one of the originals, as the original drummer, as the guy who made all the classic albums with the band. But towards the tail end of his time with KISS, he's using triggers, and it was like little kitty, kind of arm movements. The guy was in pain. We know that. We know he had physical challenges, and we know that he's had continued physical challenges with breast cancer and who knows what else. I mean, he's 70 years old. So, yeah. But yeah, he is an easy target because he's also, been spoken about in everyone else's books, Gene and Paul and Ace, in somewhat unflattering terms. Ken, I'm going to go straight to you on this, before I dig myself a bigger hole, number one. And let's talk Peter. Does he get the wrong end of the stick from the fans? Is he just too much of an easy target?
I don't know. I don't think he gets as bad as some of the newer members. I'm not going to say who at the moment.
Yes.
But, I think I don't see a lot of people bashing Peter except for his, when it comes down to him complaining or him saying that he's going to put something out and people are waiting forever for him to put this rock and roll album out that he's promised for years now, I guess. Where is this thing? Every now and then he says he's still working on it.
Right, but you do
it.
know that cats sleep 22 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
So he's got a very limited window in which he can accomplish things during the day. And maybe half of the time he's awake is spent cleaning, of course.
He does have 9 lives.
Those are all gone.
Okay. He may have used 8 of them up to now. But I don't know. I don't think, to me, Peter doesn't get too much of a bad rap. I think it's the members that are not original get bad raps.
So you don't think he's bashed unfairly when he does put out an album like One for All?
Well,
Not
I think he's
unfairly.
bashed fairly because it's not what Kiss fans are expecting from him. Maybe it's something he wanted to do on his own, and that music sounded good to him. But yeah, you can bash any music like you can bash any Kiss album that may be, underwhelming. So
You know what though? In his defense, when has he ever put out an album that Kiss fans liked? I mean, ever since the Kiss solo records, he's never put out a Kiss album that they've liked. Peter Criss has never done anything that didn't come with like a million complaints.
Chris Cat 1 wasn't bad, though. That's probably my favorite Peter Criss album outside of
yeah, that
78
was okay.
album. That's not bad. I mean, it's not something I throw on all the time, but it's not awful. Oh, come on. It's not awful. I have worse CDs in my collection than that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you got to have some.
Like
Vincent, right?
Revenge, right?
God, yeah. Oh,
Or
don't even go down
that was
road.
low. No, I mean,
I heard your little comment last week.
Cat number 1. I mean, that was fine. I don't think anyone's really bad. People are more happy to see him return with that. But it seems to take a person. Everyone's heard like Ayatollah Chris Gola, the complainer, shooting Christmas trees,
Well, okay, you know what though? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I have a little train of thought going on here. The problem with this is that he says all these things, in his book, and then he said things throughout the years, and then once you say something and it's out there for everyone to read, what do you expect? Like if you put that out there, people are going to react to it. And the whole problem with me, with Peter Criss, is that I've always loved his early stuff, just like you guys. I thought from the very first record to like I'll even give him as far as maybe like Rock and Roll Over. I thought he was fantastic. Okay, and I have no complaints about him, no qualms about him at all. But he's one of these guys, and he's not the only one. I got to preface this by saying this: he's not the only musician that I have this problem with. I've even for a little while had a problem with Geddy Lee of Rush, my favorite band in the whole world. I've had a problem with him on this too, is that musicians sometimes let their abilities tend to slip, and they have nobody to blame but themselves for doing that. I mean, Geddy at one point started becoming a really lackluster singer. He was a singer who was really wallowing and wailing and stuff like that, and he let it slip. And, people always say, oh, it's age and this and that, but baloney. I mean, look at Steven Tyler. The man's getting old, but he can still hit those registers up there, no problem. And you can shake your head all you want, but he can still do it a lot better than some of these other people we're talking about now can do it. They've let their abilities slip. They maybe didn't work on it as much as they've had over the years, and if you don't practice on something, it starts slipping. If you don't use it, you lose it. Right? And I think that's the problem with someone like Peter Criss, I think, is that he just, through the years, the ability maybe just isn't there, maybe he just got worse and worse through age. I mean, look at Neil Peart, the guy complete, he's a walking, bag of like soreness now. They have to stop because of him, but he completed a whole tour and was absolutely fantastic. Sure, he was bandaged up everywhere and tied and stuff, but you know what? He got it done, and you can't take that away from him. I mean, I don't know what, you're talking about KISS, an organization who had lots of people at their disposal and lots of different things. They could have done maybe did more to help him get through their shows, but.
Mark, we're totally losing
I'm
you
going to
right
interrupt
now.
you real quick, Mark.
I think he's covered in snow right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. You know, Peter did a good job on the reunion tour, and you know when we did an episode of like our top threes a while back, and they asked like, well, who all I forget if it was our top threes or we're talking about the different Kiss drummers, and we ranked our Kiss drummers 1 through 3. And I rank Peter Criss my favorite Kiss drummer, even though everybody knows I love Revenge, and Eric Singer's a great guy. I've met him. I can't tell you how many times he knows my name when he sees me because I've met him so many times, and he's super nice. And Eric Carr, I never had the opportunity to see a Kiss show with Eric Carr, but you know his drum work on Creatures is great. His drum work on Asylum and you see him on some of those tours. He's fantastic. But you know what? At the end of the day, Peter Criss is my favorite Kiss drummer. He's the backbeat of those first 6 albums, which makes Kiss relevant today. You know, and Julian said it too. He was dynamite in that reunion tour. He really was. And yeah, you watch some videos of that farewell tour, and you watch videos of that '03 tour, and yeah, he is barely tapping those drums at all. You know what? He's hurting. He lived a hard rock and roll life, and he was paying for it come 98, 2000, 2003 when he was on tour with Kiss. But I don't know if you guys have ever met Peter. I met Peter one time. It was at an event that Julian was describing at the onset of the show. It was at a horror convention in Chicago. And yeah, I paid him money for his autographs, you know, for each autograph you had to pay. But he was super nice, though. He signed my leg, you know, when I went and got it tattooed, just like Gene Paul did on my profile picture on the FAQ. And he took his time and he really signed it nice. And he drew a little drum next to it, and you know, and he was super nice. And showed him and he signed Destroyer for me, and he signed a couple other things for me too. Maybe it's because I had him sign quite a few things, and he was really cashing in on me by he was so nice to me. I don't know, but he was great. He couldn't have been nicer to me. And yeah, I've heard stories of guys that have like run into Peter during the reunion tour and wanted Peter to sign something, and Peter would like basically almost run the other direction, and like my buddy had to chase him down to get him to sign something. It's like, Jesus. You know, it would take you less time just to sign your name than to go through the aggravation that it's taken you to not sign this. And like he finally got him to sign like his old Kiss lunchback from the 70s, and you can just barely see like the P in a scribble, and he's just like, fine, dude, just like leave me the fuck alone. Get me out. So it totally looks like. And you know, and that's some people, that's just not their thing. They don't want to sign autographs, whatever. And, you know, and I get it. You know, the fans are what make you famous, so you need to take care of the fans, absolutely. But my one experience one-on-one with Peter was fantastic, and I couldn't say enough nice things about him. Did he let his talents deteriorate, Mark? Yeah, he probably did. He had a lot of fun come 76 when he was making enough money to be able to have a lot of fun. But does he get a bad rap unfairly? Maybe. I mean, I remember I was at a Kiss Expo in Indianapolis a few years back, and they were taking a picture on stage of all the kids that were there that were wearing Kiss makeup, and they were going to put it on, and Keith was going to put it on Kiss Online. And they said, you know, if you're, you know, okay, everybody, you know, like if you're Gene, you know, stick out your tongue. If you're Paul, pot your lips. If you're Ace, put your thumb up. And if you're Peter, complain, they said. But, so I think he does get an unfair rap. You know, is everybody nice every time you meet him? No. You know, there's plenty of people I mean, you guys think I'm a nice guy, but you know what? There's plenty of people out there that probably think I'm a jerk too. So, you know, I guess some of it's personal experience too, but I think he gets an unfair rap. You know, is he always pleasant to people? No, I've heard from other people too that can be a jerk, but
Yeah, but who can't? Simple as that.
And that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Who can't be?
Or even the nicest person can have an off day where they're just to a fan, would you leave me the hell alone while he's got his fork in his hand? It's like, just leave me alone. I mean, when I met Peter at a meet and greet, so obviously it's a paid situation like yours is, but he was really into it, and he really gave 110%. He was really personable. He was an absolute sweetheart in person, where, I had time with him, and I felt I had a good time with him, and I will always remember and cherish that time I had with Peter.
Very similar.
Simple as that. I mean, he was really, really nice, and he was really appreciative, and that was on the 03 tour, by the way.
Right. Did you meet and greet on the 03 tour?
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent more time with him than any of the band members because, of course, everyone flocks straight to Gene and Paul at those things, and I didn't. I wanted to talk to Peter, and maybe that was unusual for him, but, cool experience. Okay, let's talk about Tommy, going from 103 cat to the next. Tommy, I think, has always been given an unfair rap, and this also comes out of last week's kind of topic where we spoke about Eric Singer breaking the taboo of being the first guy really to go in Kiss makeup and go on tour with the band wearing Peter's makeup in that case, and he seemed to get away with it more than when Tommy did, because there was certainly an uproar in 01 when Eric put on Peter's makeup. There's no denying it. There was, all sort. That's where the scab stuff comes from.
It was worse.
It was pretty horrible. And it was, here's this journeyman, here's this, just a hired gun. He'll do anything for a buck type deal. But people got over it pretty quickly, didn't they? Maybe it helped that Peter came back in 03 and then he was out again, and But when Tommy came into the picture,
it was much worse.
It was like handbags at dawn. People just frickin' wigged out big time. Mark, you're back for a moment, so your video actually looks nice right now. So let's get your opinion on this before the snow, interferes again.
Honestly, I just think that he does get unfairly treated. I mean, I think that he's a great guitar player. He's done what was asked for him and more, I think. And frankly, I mean, what more can you want from a guy? He's been with the organization since who knows how long, like from far back. And, I think he gets majorly treated unfairly in that aspect. I think that he's done everything that you want and more, and I think that his playing is really top notch. I mean, what more could you want from him, really? That's all I can really say about that.
And I'll agree with you on that. His playing is top notch, but I think people want to kind of measure it by Black and Blue, which is a very low measuring stick to kind of use in terms of guitar rock. They were one of the generic 80s bands of absolutely nothingness that didn't really amount to much. They've got a couple of decent songs. Hold On to 18 is good. And I can't even think of other ones off the top of my head, but there are a couple on Nasty Nasty that I do kind of dig. Right. And I will say that his guitar work and songwriting on Shake the Faith is fantastic. That is a really, really good album, and that's about all I've heard of Tommy Thayer outside of Kiss. Is he a good guitar player? Well, he didn't write all those licks that he plays every night with Kiss, but he does a damn good job of playing them every single night. Let's put it that way. He plays them extremely well. He puts everything into it. Now he's got the mannerisms, and he's kind of taken over the character and presents it well. So that's just like a personal appraisal of him. I don't bash Tommy, because I think he's critical. I think without Tommy, there wouldn't be a lot of the last 20 years, not just, the last, 13 since Ace did leave, but before then we know he's responsible for a lot of things. In the production world, on the DVDs, he's responsible for millions of epileptic seizures with some of the editing work on Rock the Nation and the Symphony. But that aside, he did do a great job working on those. So I just think he's just the easiest target for anyone to just hate on the band still existing, and it's so unfair when he does give so much.
Yeah, you know what though? I think that that's a really interesting point that you brought up, because if there's one thing that I always see people complain about is, oh, there's not enough DVDs coming out. Oh, there's not this coming out, or that's not coming out. But what has come out, you have him pretty much to thank for it coming out. So if he wasn't in the picture, all the things that you've been still complaining about, you wouldn't even have that out right now if it wasn't for Tommy.
Right, and he is I believe, and I may well be wrong, but I do believe that he is the unofficial catalog consultant, the master of the keys to the vault. So we have him to thank for things not coming out as well.
And if it wasn't Tommy, at the end of the day, if it wasn't Tommy wearing the Ace Frehley makeup, playing in Kiss, you know what? It'd be somebody else. I mean, let's be perfectly honest about it. If it wasn't Eric Singer, it'd be somebody else. So, I don't think it's fair to attack them personally for either Eric or Tommy for doing what they do. I think they both do a great job. I've seen this lineup of the band's been in existence since 2004 for 12 years now. It's the longest lineup of any kind for Kiss. And Tommy couldn't have been nicer the times I've met him, and I think he gets it that people are the hardcore Ace Frehley fans maybe resent him for wearing the Ace Frehley makeup. I think he gets it, but at the end of the day, he's been in the band as long as he has, and this is it. If you don't like it, well then don't come see him.
Yeah, and it's like shit. If Ace isn't wearing the makeup and doesn't,
somebody else is going.
Everyone has to remember, Ace walked away. Ace wasn't,
and sold the rights for the makeup.
Ace wasn't told, "Don't come back." Ace was just like, Curly.
I'm not going to that Jamaican show, and that's what started it.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. Don't want to do it. All right, well, Tommy's here. Tommy has played Ace in Cold Gin. Tommy knows how to play guitar. He knows which end to hold it. Tommy, you want to go to Jamaica?
That's what started it.
But here we go. Does Tommy
and
get
then Ace
worse
didn't
time?
want to do 03. They asked Ace to do 03 when they were required to have 3/4 membership. They gave him first dibs, and he said no, he didn't want to do it. Don't forget about that.
Yeah. But do you think he gets treated worse than Eric? Eric now has been given a pass because Eric was the drummer in the Revenge era. He had worn...
Yeah. Because Revenge is great.
He'd been... Well... We're going to have another episode on Revenge.
Eric Singer, he had a slow burn, I would call it, into Kiss. So people got accustomed to him being part of Kiss, starting with the Revenge era up to, 95. So he was there. So I remember him, putting on the makeup for the first time, seeing him in the makeup. I thought, I was kind of a little bit shocked, but I wasn't mad. I thought, well, that's an okay idea. So as far as Tommy goes, it was more of a shock because I think most people didn't see him in Cold Gin, like you said. Most people, the videos weren't out yet. He hasn't even done that stuff for the most part, except maybe a couple things in the 90s. But he was more of just popped in right away. Though we know now that he played, lead on a lot of Psycho Circus. So to me, Tommy was a bigger shock. And they shouldn't be bashing him anyway. I mean, it was a bigger shock. He got the makeup. It's Ace on there. I would have been okay with new makeup, but I understand the band thinks it's going to dilute things.
And simply put, they own it. They don't have to dilute it.
Exactly, and they own it. Now, the Earthquake thing is, if you're going to blame anybody, you don't blame Tommy for taking the job. He's just doing his job. He's getting paid money.
Doing it.
If you're gonna get mad, you should be bashing Gene and Paul for that.
Exactly. And if Gene and Paul asked you, if you were a lead guitar player or a drummer, and Gene and Paul asked you to join Kiss, would you say, "Oh no, I couldn't do that. No, tour the world, make millions of dollars. Oh no thanks. I'll stay here and work my 9 to 5.
Yeah, what if Paul Stanley was asked to be in Led Zeppelin, for instance, back
or Axl Rose was asked
happened,
to be in AC/DC.
Oh man, don't go there.
Axl Rose, yes.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
that's another case right there.
I'm sorry.
I had to. It was too easy when Ken set it up for me.
Because I was typing a response to someone. What do you think about Axl being, the front man of AC/DC? I was like, Angus Young has obviously lost it and needs to join Malcolm in the care home.
Sorry,
Axl Rose.
I had to do it.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you. Continue.
So where we were. So yeah, I said, hey, it's not, like I said, Eric had a slow, he was kind of, people were somewhat accustomed to him, so he it worked out better for him. And maybe part of it too is, the thing with Peter's diminishing skills or, his pains that, were bothering him at the times. You're getting a good drummer coming in to back Kiss, and you can't complain too much about that, in my opinion.
No, but yet, a few years ago when Ace and Peter got together, was it the Eddie Trunk thing?
Right.
And played, they play Hooligan and something else.
For all I can.
And, Peter did just fine for 2 songs.
Yeah. But then you saw him on that Rob Zombie thing playing God of Thunder, and it was pretty brutal. It was not good at all.
Okay.
Do you guys remember seeing that?
No.
No? I
just said Rob
He
Zombie.
played with Rob Zombie
Yeah.
when they were in New Jersey or something like that.
I
And
saw that.
and he had Rob Zombie's drummer playing along with Peter. And it was pretty brutal. It was not good. But going back to what you guys were talking about, we're talking about Tommy. And do you guys remember the first time you saw Tommy in the Ace Frehley makeup? Because they teased us with it a couple times. Once on that Dick Clark special, and VH1 had a That 70s Show special, and him and Eric and Gene and Paul kind of appeared on a That 70s Show special on VH1 where they're promoting That 70s Show going into syndication. And I remember seeing that lineup of Kiss for the first time on those 2 instances around 2002. And I was really, I support the lineup today, but at the time in 2002 when that was happening, I was really disheartened that this is what it's come to. And I think that's what a lot of Kiss fans felt like, that, well, really, we've done the farewell tour, and this is what we got now. This is what it's come to. Is that okay? It's 2002. I've moved on a year and a half since I saw the first image of Eric Singer wearing the Peter Criss makeup, and now I got this other guy that I don't even know. And a lot of Kiss fans didn't know who he was. Yeah, I might have seen his name on the Hot in the Shade rap. That he wrote a couple songs on Hot in the Shade, but the majority of Kiss fans don't even know who this guy is, and there he is wearing this iconic makeup and like this untouchable makeup in their eyes because it's Ace Frehley's makeup, and I don't even know who this guy is, and all of a sudden he's a member of Kiss. And
but isn't
it was disheartening at the time for me, and I've grown to accept it, and I'm fine with it. I don't have any qualms against today's lineup, but it was a little disheartening and a little shocking at the time for me.
Mark.
It's funny because what you just mentioned there, isn't that what the Kiss original formula, what they always wanted, though? Like when they got Eric Carr, they wanted an unknown in to replace Peter. So when they brought in Tommy,
we can have this argument all day.
No. I'm just saying that. No, but I'm just saying that when they brought in Tommy, you were saying that he's an unknown and nobody knew about him. In a sense, shouldn't that have been looked at as good? I mean, isn't that what they've always wanted whenever they brought in somebody like that? Like they wanted an unknown.
I can look up what this guy looks like on the internet.
But the problem was he wasn't unknown enough. Because people did know Black and Blue, and people did know, the fanzines throughout the 90s had plenty of history on Tommy Thayer and the stuff that he was working on with the band, so he wasn't some kind of unknown who magically appeared one day out of a genie bottle saying, "I am the new Ace Frehley." But one thing that strikes me was, did this occur, too close to that kind of awful movie Rockstar coming out, where
True too. Remember that?
did that color people's opinions of both, Eric and Tommy? That you're in Tommy's case, it really was a guy coming from a club band, Cold Gin. Yeah, they did a little bit of touring internationally, and they had some cachet with the band to play, events. But come on, they were still a tribute band at the end of the day, coming in and replacing the guy in the band. So, that's just a little bit too much art, imitating life, or vice versa. So, Mark, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I never ever thought of that until you just brought that up now. Like, that never struck me at all. But I mean, it is an interesting point because, that movie, I remember when it came out, before it came out, actually, a lot of people were all excited about it because the rumor was that it was supposed to, go over the whole Ripper Owens story about him joining Judas Priest. Mm-hmm. And then when he came on one of those magazine interviews and said that, Judas Priest like separated themselves from that movie because they didn't like the way they ended up finishing the movie, that it totally went away from what happened, kind of deal. Then everybody started getting sour on the movie even before it came out because they're saying, well, Judas Priest isn't tying themselves to it anymore. So, it almost seemed like people, snubbed it before it even actually came out. But I've never would have thought of that unless you just brought that up now. It's actually a really good point. I mean, did people, see too much of a resemblance in it, and did it affect people's thoughts? I don't know either way, but I know that when I was waiting for the movie to come out, there was a lot of excitement around it, and then as soon as Priest disassociated themselves from it, all of that kind of disappeared.
Yeah, it is so based on Priest. So I mean,
oh yeah.
I do not like what was it? Some of the movies. Like Detroit Rock City, I'm not a fan of those sort of rock movies. I actually liked Rockstar, and if it's on, I'll actually flip on it, and it's not just because of Jennifer Aniston, but that certainly helps.
September 2001.
Well, it's an interesting movie, but I mean, but the whole ending of it, though, is not, I mean, Tim Owens isn't in a part playing acoustic guitar songs now at the end. He's still playing, That whole ending of it was kind of, they just kind of made a Hollywood ending to the movie. I think that's what they didn't like about it, right?
Yeah, and, that's Hollywood. Whereas...
I think, I know that movie, but I think as far as Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer, even if they had new makeup, people would be still bashing them. It wouldn't make any difference.
Find a different reason to bash.
Yeah, exactly. There's just they're not an original. I mean, that the core four original guys. So they're going to complain about it, whether it's new makeup, the elephant makeup, whatever makeup it may be. They're still going to complain about the new guys.
That's a prerequisite to being a Kiss fan. You have to be able to complain about everything and everything. It just seems like you can't satisfy them with anything. I mean.
So we are all Peter Chris's.
Yeah, essentially, we're all.
Peter gets a bad rap.
Because Peter Criss is honest. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he tells it how he feels it. So, Kiss fans, we're just like Peter. We're not gonna put icing. We're not gonna turn it into a cliche. We're not gonna speak through tongues or whatever. So let's talk about some of the other members, because one of the things that did get me on the board one time was Eric Carr came up in a thread, and people started giving him a hard time, and I really took offense to that. It's like, I didn't know Eric. I never met him. I never saw Kiss with him. And we all know now that there was more to Eric Carr's story than just the glossy pictures, that there were, personal challenges going on in his life, especially Hot in the Shade tour. But I can understand anyone bashing Eric Carr. That, to me, that just seems to be
off limits.
Totally off limits. I mean, same with Mark St. John to a certain extent. Now that they're gone, it seems kind of unacceptable to speak ill of the dead. Simple as that. They're gone. They don't get to defend themselves. We don't know what would have happened. We don't know their stories. We don't know their side of the stories.
No, we don't have an Eric Carr autobiography.
No, and the one that was put together, has a lot of gaps.
Right, but
and
it's not Eric.
Yeah, and it really feels like it's written slanted from the views of certain people. That there's still a lot being hidden, rightfully so, that doesn't need to be discussed. There is stuff that is none of our business. Simple as that. So Eric Carr, thoughts on him? I mean, have you witnessed any of the bashing, and do you think that I guess any of it would ever be acceptable? It's okay to be negative about Eric and still be a fan.
Well, I mean, honestly, I personally have never seen any of the bashing. I mean, I probably was maybe on the board that time when those messages went up, but I find that difficult to believe, to be honest, because like we've all been saying, I've only ever heard good things about Eric, and I've only ever heard these great stories, about whenever fans have met him. I mean, I have that one Kiss book there, that one that talks about all the fanzines, and everybody that's ever written a fanzine, if there's one thing I've always noticed about that, is that one of the first people they always get in them is Eric Carr. It always seems like he was the first one to help out the fans. If you need an interview, I'm your man, and it just seemed like everybody loved him because he was there for the fans. When you talk about a KISS member that's literally there for the fans, it was him, So why he would get a bad rap ever, I just can't imagine at all. It just seems unbelievable to me.
Lonnie.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think Eric really gets left out of any kind of, hatred or anything like that. Eric, because I think a lot of people compare the situation with Eric Singer to, Eric Carr had his own makeup, and I think Eric is held to a higher esteem and it's almost put on a pedestal to some point. I haven't seen a whole lot of bashing on Eric Carr, and anyone who does go out there and start bashing Eric Carr for any reason, the guy's been dead since 1990. One. Thank you, Julian. That's what I get for doing the show with you. But I mean, it's 25 years that Eric Carr has been gone. Are you really going to bash a guy that's been dead for 25 years? I mean, that tells me a lot about who you are if you're out there bashing Eric Carr for any reason. And you can come after me for saying that. I don't care. If you're bashing a guy that's been dead for that long, who really, you guys talked last week about how Eric Singer might have saved KISS. Well, you know what? You could make the argument with Creatures of the Night how Eric Carr might have saved KISS and gave KISS a new sound at the time when they really needed it. So anyone who wants to bash Eric Carr, send your hate mail to me. I think that's totally absurd.
But does he get a free pass for being deceased?
I don't think he gets a free pass for being deceased, and I don't know what you're going to bash Eric Carr about. And if at the end of the day, really, what are you bashing that guy about? Right. Peter Criss was out of the band. He was kicked out of the band. It was they decided he was gone, that they couldn't continue on with Peter Criss. They brought in an unknown, which was good at the time because they're still wearing the makeup. It's pre-internet. They could bring in a guy. They're still concealing their identities. And he did a fantastic job. Watch those Australian bootlegs from 1980 when he first joined the band. I mean, he's fantastic. And watch anything with Eric Carr. I don't know of a bad bootleg or a bad anything I have with Eric Carr on. I really don't. I mean, because the drumming was always solid as can be. So, does he get a free pass? I don't think he needs a pass.
Right, he doesn't need a pass. And,
Amen.
And coming from my I guess view is when I was into KISS back then. I only was into them for 3 years before, knowing Peter Criss as the drummer for 3 years, right? 77 to 79 was my little era when I started out, when I was really into them. And then all of a sudden, Peter Criss has left, and here's, they're introducing, Eric Carr. excuse me, Eric Carr on the Kids Are People Too show. Um, and I was like, oh, well, okay. I didn't freak out about it, but I wasn't a fan that started out in '74. Maybe if I started a little earlier, maybe I would have went, oh, what the heck is this going on here? But I had no problem. I had no problem with it. It's okay. It's a new guy, new makeup, Fox. Okay, yeah. Let's see what he can do. And hey, he was darn good. And the other thing is, maybe people were bashing him back then. But again, yeah, like Lonnie was saying, that was pre-internet. There's no internet back then. If you had to bash somebody, you had to do it. Write magazines, notes in the Rolling Stone or Hit Parade or Circus or whatever it may be, um, and complain about it.
And someone would take those letters and crumple them up and throw them in the garbage can where they belong. Unlike what we have now with the keyboard warriors who get to get their knickers in a twist and type some hateful, stupid, inane comments, and boom, enter. It's there for the world to see how stupid they are.
Exactly.
That's an interesting point, though, Ken. What if there was an internet in 1980, or there was a KissFAQ message board in 1980?
The world would have blown up by now.
Well,
There would have been a lot of
where I'm
bashing.
going. Well, what if there was an internet and an FAQ message board in 1980? How would have Kiss fans reacted? Would they have been pissed off that, what are you doing? Peter Criss wrote Beth. Peter Criss did this for the band. Peter Criss did that for the band. How can you continue on without Peter Criss? And that Fox makeup looks stupid. And, how can you do that? Do you think that would have been the case?
Maybe not as much, because at that time, 1980, you had probably a lot of the Kiss's fan base was, well, the older fans were dropping off, going on to something else, and then you were getting maybe the 9-year-olds to 15-year-old span liking them, and it probably wouldn't have been a bigger deal to them. It's like another member of.
But you said you took it in stride, though. You were okay with it.
I took it in stride. I had no problem with it. I said he left. Okay, he left. I mean, I'm not gonna cry over it or anything like Peter Criss.
Right.
No. But I said, well, that's fine. Let's see. Hopefully the band keeps going on, because I love the band and I just wanted it to keep going.
So let's move on to the next target sequentially is Vinnie Vincent. And for anyone who is online tomorrow, that's the 25th, check out Decibel Geek podcast and see if they get an episode up. Simple as that.
It's a deep tease.
Well, who knows? At this point, I'm just going by what everyone else has read on Facebook at this point. So, Vinny, unfairly treated, easy target. I mean, those loafers sure made him an easy target.
Easy target's a good.
People complain that you didn't see him. People read the fanzines. What was it? What was Jupe and Pelt's fanzine? Kiss Collector. The episode of him in Europe in '96, the saga. I mean, there's just no word that really puts it gives it the full shape and color of just how crazy that whole episode is. No music. Something finally comes out, and it did come from him, the Speedball Jam. I mean, 76 minutes of, I don't know what the hell you'd call that.
Awful is what you call it.
Not even separated into different tracks. I mean, just like one hell of a long run-on sentence, like I'm doing now with my monologue. And when you balance that with what Vinny does while he's a member of the band, and yeah, we hear some of the batshit crazy behavior that Gene and Paul have accused him of, and the lawsuits. Vinny, don't sue me. Is Vinny treated unfairly, or has he kind of made his own bed? And I'm going to say he's probably made his own bed, but he really, again, seems to be someone who's in need of help. And I hope he finds that. We know he's had challenges in his life as well, personally, with the murder of his ex-wife, the death of his second wife. So some unpleasant things, and he did keep losing in court repeatedly against Kiss, and ending up having to pay them, give him his royalties to pay them. So made that bed, but he does seem to get bashed quite a lot, and he seems to be probably more popular to bash than even Tommy. What's you guys' thoughts on Vinny? Lonnie?
Well, I think Vinny is an easy target for people, and he's become like a punchline for a lot of groups today. I think Vinny's contributions to Kiss were very significant, and without his contributions on Creatures and his contributions, you could make the argument that "Lick It Up" is almost a Vinnie Vincent solo CD with Gene and Paul singing the lyrics almost. He co-wrote.
Yep.
We talked about that a few weeks ago. Almost all the songs, and then makes Return on Revenge, co-writes a few songs there, and I think Vinny gets treated on. I think if anybody and Vinny has his problems. Don't get me wrong. Vinny is not an upstanding guy. We've all heard the stories of him touring on those conventions in '96, and him never signing his contract. He's in the band, and he's this and he's that, and he's a pain in the ass when he's in the band this way. He was gone. But I think Vinny does get treated a little bit unfairly. That he is a very gifted musician. I don't care for Euphoria and things like that, but I do like those early Invasion albums, and I do like his work on. Mark's a little snickering like the Dickens over there, and I said I like those Invasion albums. I saw you, and I think he does. What do you guys think? I think he gets treated unfairly.
Honestly,
I can't hear you, Mark. You're breaking up.
I just think that, for me, I think it's a bit sad, actually. I mean, he is a good writer. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, the Kiss stuff that he did with them was really good. I really loved those songs, and I liked that era that he was in. Yeah, and like he said, maybe he had his issues and his problems even back then, but we weren't privy to them at that time. We just knew that the music was good, and we knew that we enjoyed the songs. It's only later on, when we have all these other podcasts and people come out of the woodwork and start talking about stories about him, that we learn the full scope of it, right? So, I think he made his bed, obviously, because when you hear all these things that happened, I mean, how can you think differently of him when you hear all these things, right? But I wish it wasn't that way. He was a good writer and a good guitar player, and I wish he would have kept it together more, and maybe we would have got more out of him. That was good,
My God, if there's anyone I would love to hear new music from, that would be Vinny. I would just love to know what he is writing. When you talked about Steven Tyler going country earlier, I was nearly wetting myself thinking of that idiot, going country. But Vinny could do anything, any style of music. I mean, he's just got the repertoire to do it. I would just love to see. I don't care if it's him sitting on a stool with an acoustic, and not doing 110 miles an hour. Or urinating on his electric guitar. I would just like to see him do anything musical at this point.
You talked about the Kiss Vault earlier, and Tommy has the keys to the Kiss Vault. I would love to know what is in the Vinnie Vincent Vault. I mean, I bet there's some gems out there that we don't even know about.
We know what's in the Vinnie Vincent Vault because he publicized a lot of it when he was putting his box set together. And I think he's probably got similar sorts of work tapes to what Bob Daisley has recently shared, some of his holy grails of his work with Ozzy at late 79 and Randy Rhoads. He just put up some samples on a little feature, and some of them are, just boombox kind of recording. You're noodling around with guys, and you've just got the boombox going so that you don't forget what you're playing, so you can go back and reference it. He's probably got those for, like, I Love It Loud, or Loud and Proud, as they called it. So a lot of that writing session he's probably got, but he can't use because Kiss owns his ass now. Simple as that, which is such a shame that we're more likely to hear stuff out of Kiss's vault than Vinny's. And Absolutely. Vinny's the one who could profit more from getting it up on iTunes. So, that's the real shame to the whole situation with Vinny, is that his situation has gotten so dire that, he's trademarking everything, and kind of fighting a guerrilla battle against Kiss, and his career has been dead for 20-something years at this point. So,
yeah, I think he's gotten a bad rap to a degree, but yes, he's brought a lot on himself. But you know what? Let's just stop kicking him when he's down. This guy's obviously got some problems, and people need to lay off of him. I keep hearing things, people all the time out there listening to podcasts or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And always the voice of reason.
And they're just, let's just bring his name up every time and pick on. We don't know. You haven't lived his life. You don't know what he's been through. Maybe again, he brought some of the stuff on himself, but come on, lay off. I just hope the guy's okay and living well and doing all right. I think what he needed, and it's just too much ego or something at the beginning when he joined with Kiss, and he needed like a someone with him all the time, I think, to babysit him, to tell him the right things to do. Someone good. I don't know. It's just kind of sad. It's really too bad because we could have gotten a lot of great music out of him, I think, and that we're missing.
Just think of what that does do to an ego, though, that you basically come in and save a band of that stature. You come in, and your first real contributions are, a couple of songs on Creatures, and then you're touring with the band, and then they utilize you 100%, and you provide Lick It Up. Jesus, it's...
He knew it.
Too much too soon, maybe.
Too much. And we know that he had tendencies because we've heard the stories from the guys in Warrior. But, your voice of reason, Ken, is, well taken. I don't think any of us as Kiss fans should really be wanting to kick a person, a human, when they're down. And it's more important to maybe wish him personal happiness and satisfaction rather than anything else. Forget the vault, forget the songs, the demos, the music, or anything. This is a human being. Can he sleep at night comfortably and not worry about people, and just be happy? That's far more important than anything else, and totally agree with you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Ken. The whole thing about maybe having somebody with them, because you look at some of these other stars now. A lot of them, you hear stories about how they bring their friends along, or they maybe bring someone with them just to keep that sense of reality with them, to not let them go too overboard, to have somebody with you there to kind of nudge you in the ribs to say, hey, listen, don't go too overboard. Maybe it was something that he would have needed, but it benefited from having, if he had that with him, maybe he wouldn't have went off so far in the deep end and things would have been different.
Yeah, so, that's a great point, and it's just such a shame that, Kiss, I think we've all come to know from the stories that we've learned, can be a very toxic environment, for people. There are the negatives and the positives that go along with it, and how different members of the band have handled it. Let's move on to the next guitarist, Mark St. John. I don't think he is treated unfairly or fairly. He's not really treated. He's kind of an afterthought, really. His contributions to the band were so fleeting. He started doing the kind of the expo circuit as well and seemed likable enough, and no one really knew much about him. He's always the enigma for me in the band, that no one really knows much about him before Kiss, and then after Kiss there's not a whole lot about him either. I mean, obviously he did White Tiger and then hooked up with Peter Criss, with basically Peter Criss joining White Tiger, and then there's not a whole lot. There's not much to know about him, so I don't think he's treated fairly or unfairly. I think we often joke about the Bumblebee guitar playing, and he's just like illustrative of what guitar players were doing at the time. He's very much from that period. There are some videos of him pre-Kiss up on YouTube now, and he's doing blues jams and some pretty heavy music. I mean, straight out of kind of the Yes prog player sphere. So, he was a good musician without a doubt. And yeah, I threw Yes out there for you, Mark. So.
Yeah, Mark's going to like it.
You kind of caught me aback there for a second there. I haven't seen this video, so I might have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find the links to it, because I can't remember which one of his bands it was, whether it was Dali or some other one. But there is a guy on the FAQ board, MC Pecco, who does do insane trolling of pre-Kiss band members, and I mean, he's come up with some really obscure stuff, and I think it was he who posted the links to this video stuff that one of the keyboard players for one of these bands had posted. So you might have to do a search on the FAQ for that, but it was certainly worth seeing to kind of get more of a feel. I mean, with Eric Carr, we can go back and see his Sellerman creation, Salt and Pepper, all of his stuff before he comes into the band. You get a little bit more feel for them musically. Same with Vinny, with all the stuff that he had out. So, Mark St. John, I don't think we'll dwell long on him. What are your thoughts on him, Lonnie?
I think Mark St. John for a lot of people is more of an afterthought than anything else. Not to take anything away from him, but because of the fact that he played on one album, and the fact that he played 2.5 shows live with the band, that you're and he was forced out of the band because he had a problem with his hand, and then he died, an untimely death. He died early, and really, you're gonna, again, almost back to the Eric Carr thing. You're gonna pick on a guy like that, who, won the lottery basically, that he was, asked to join Kiss, and didn't get to fulfill it, and that he didn't get to tour with them. So, and would he have lasted in Kiss? Would say, it wouldn't have happened with his hand, and that he would have been able to tour with them, and Bruce Kulick wouldn't have been asked to come in to tour during Animals. Would he have been asked back to do Asylum? Well, I don't know, and no one here does either. So, I think it's, really in bad taste to give a guy like that a hard time too, because it's like someone giving you the winning lottery ticket but saying, well, you can't go cash it.
Yeah, or you had the winning lottery ticket and you washed it in your pants in the laundry.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that the main point here is that we just didn't have enough time with him to make any real sort of assessment. I mean, what he did give us, I thought, was good. I mean, sure, Animalize is not the greatest Kiss album, but it was still good. He did some fine guitar work. I mean, as a guitar player, I can appreciate what he did and what he brought to the table. And I mean, he was technically excellent. I mean, he was exactly what they were looking for at the time. And from what they described, what they wanted, he was that. That's what they wanted. He was a full-out shredder who could do everything from two-handed tapping to whammy bar diving to you name it. Everything that was happening then, he was able to do it. And, it's just time was the enemy. Like you said, we didn't have enough time in the picture with him. We don't know what would have happened if he would have stayed, if the hand would have been fine. What would have happened? I mean, again, all these other podcasts that are popping out of the woodwork now and having all these stories from people that have been around him maybe longer than some of us have and know a little bit more about his backstory, have things to say and to talk about. But, again, sometimes people have trouble in their lives, and sometimes it's hard to kick some things out of your life, and it's unfortunate what happened. And, I just wish he would have been around longer and would have gave us some more music, because by the sounds of it, he was a really great guitar player. I mean, I was genuinely taken aback just now when Julian mentioned the whole thing, that he was playing something that was along the veins of Yes. I mean, I'd love to see something like that out of him, I mean, I love that stuff. That kind of technical playing is right up my alley, right? So obviously he had the skills. It's just too bad he wasn't able to use more of it.
Yep. Lonnie, Ken, any quick thoughts? And then we'll get
I
into
have
the
nothing
last
more.
Ken.
That's all right. I have nothing more on it. I mean, you guys
same voice of reason that applies to Vinny applies to Mark, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yep.
And yeah, he wasn't around like you said, Julian. I mean, it was a short period of time, and we didn't really get to know him at all. And when I saw them on Animalized tour, yeah, he was gone. Of course, he didn't last long.
He was gone as quickly as you learned about him.
It's like, okay,
he was gone.
It's like, okay, what happened to him? But I mean, yeah, he was decent. Obviously, a talented guy. I don't know Again, if he would have continued, like Mark says, going if he didn't have the hand problems or whatever it is, or that was just an excuse to the band to say, yeah, it was the hand problem, that's why you're gone, and it was really other reasons possibly. So I don't know, but yeah, I have no problems with them. I don't think anyone should be bashing them about anything.
Yep. No bashing of anyone anyway. Bruce Kulick. And someone actually posted a thread on the FAQ recently, which was looking for negative experiences with Bruce Kulick. Negative experiences with Bruce. I just nearly peed myself at the prospect of, I can understand Bruce having a bad day or being rushed or being, involved in something else, being maybe brusque with someone. But a bad experience with Bruce, I mean, is such a thing even possible? And does Bruce get bashed? No, he doesn't get bashed. Does he get treated too nicely? No, because he's just so freaking nice and so real. So I don't think there's even anything to say about Bruce, that he's neither treated fairly or unfairly. He's treated exactly how he should be for being the awesome human that he is.
He's so nice.
Yeah.
I saw him with Grand Funk a few years back, and he played at a casino just close to my house, and me and my buddy went to go see him. It's Bruce Kulick, and I wore a Union shirt. Remember, it was a Union shirt that just had that Shakira symbol in the middle of it. And we're standing like first or second row, and he looks at me and he points at me because he sees that shirt, and he looks at me and goes, "You're here for me." And we're like, "Yeah, we're here for you." And it was a Grand Funk show. I don't know if you guys have seen him or not, but it was really good. So me and my buddy are hanging out after the show, and maybe half hour after the show's over, he comes out from behind stage, puts his arm around us, and goes, "What are you guys drinking? I'll buy you guys a round of drinks."
Nice.
Like, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come out at all to see us, much less come out and say, "Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for coming out. What are you guys drinking? Next round's on me." Bruce Kulick just bought me a beer. How freaking cool is that?
That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say this. I've met him a couple of times, and they were always at the NAMM show when I went. And I'll tell you something. You will never hear a bad story about this man because there's nothing bad to say about him, like we just said. I mean, I've met him, like I said, 3 times. And out of the 3, there was actually one time where I actually did catch him at a time when he could have had every right to just say, "Hey, get away, kid, you bug me," kind of thing. And I didn't do it. I actually apologized to him because I didn't realize he was in the midst of something, as I came to him from his back was facing me, right? So I apologized to him right away, and he said, "Hey," he said not to worry about it. If you want a picture, come on. And he was really super cool about it. I mean, I even told him I didn't want a picture. I just wanted to say hi because I met him the year before and just to talk, and he remembered me, which was really strange because I'm sure he meets lots of people there. But he was a really genuinely nice person, and he always makes you feel like you can come up to him and talk about anything. And like I said before, going to those kind of conventions, the best thing to do is just to talk about anything but music sometimes, because they're so surrounded by it. If you talk about baseball or anything, they'll probably love talking to you, So he was a great guy. I have nothing bad to say about him, and I'll always be a supporter of Bruce.
Yeah, he seems like a very grounded person, down to earth kind of guy, and he just lets things roll off his back. I mean, and I don't think I've never seen people, bash him or call him out on things or write bad stuff about him. I never heard anything.
Yeah, and that's why I couldn't believe someone actually posting a thread, looking for, negative experiences with Bruce. I mean,
so it's kind of ridiculous.
Utterly ridiculous. That is us showing our worst online when we start looking for negative things with Bruce. Let's wrap up with Gene and Paul. Obviously they're the ringmasters of the band. Gene, first, does he get treated unfairly? Obviously, he is somewhat like the Donald Trump of the rock and roll world, that he doesn't have that filter that goes between the brain and the mouth, and things just kind of they just kind of tumble out, free form, and to hell with the consequences of it. these days, obviously, he was, a little bit pompous in, the earlier part of the career, always a bit of a character. But he's such an easy target now. It's like Gene is full of shit. It seems to be the response of most people when he says something online, obviously, because the reality is different than online being everything. So is Gene treated unfairly, or is he full of shit?
I don't think he's treated unfairly. I think he brings stuff up on himself with the comments he makes sometimes.
Do you think he enjoys it then? He does it deliberately to get a rise.
I think sometimes it's
deliberate,
and sometimes it's just he's just not thinking. It's like why say that? Sometimes I think why even say that? But he does say things, and I think down deep he's a a good guy, but he's still 100% trying to promote Kiss.
Stroke his own
every
ego
time
at
he
the
gets
same
an
time.
interview, it's we're selling something.
Let's rephrase that. He's trying to promote Gene Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and if Kiss gets promoted on the side, well, that's to his
well,
benefit.
that's still promoting Gene Simmons.
Two birds with one stone. So, he brings it on himself. Though he doesn't get bashed too often. I guess he does. Thinking about it,
but it doesn't feel unfair.
So they're the guys that are driving Kiss, and so people are always complaining about Kiss about one thing or another, about the music, about what they put out, about the set list, about not touring, about touring too much, about the vocals going away. It's just those guys are going to be the biggest targets, really, in my opinion, because they're the guys running, driving the ship along, or whatever you want to call it. But
they're driving the ship and they own the ship, and they couldn't care less if you walk the plank. So, Lonnie, Gene.
Yeah, I think Gene gets bashed, and a lot of it is deservingly so. I mean, Gene has said a lot of crap over the years that, oh yeah, we're doing this. Oh, according to him last year, this time, they were going to write a new album that was going to be out this year. Where the hell is that? And according to Gene, that they're going to do this CGI. This Kiss was doing this big budget CGI film. Well, where is that? You're just maybe there was maybe you put out some feelers for a CGI film, but it doesn't mean you're doing it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just Gene being Gene, and it's not fair to go out there and just spout off crap a lot of the times and say, well, yeah, we're doing this when you're not doing that. Maybe you want to do an album this year. Maybe you wanted to do this full-length feature film, but there's a reason why people say, I can't talk about that just yet. It's because it hasn't been approved, or it's not a go yet. You just don't go on wherever you're being talked to and just start, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. And Kiss fans get excited when they hear things like that. And if it's not true, you can't go out there and say that, because then you're disappointing your fan base. Like, well, whatever happened to that? And then you get to the point where you are Gene Simmons, and people are just looking like, yeah, what the fuck ever. I can't trust anything you say.
Yeah,
so
I think, and I've been defending most of the guys, but I can say that, yeah, I think Gene doesn't get treated unfairly, that a lot of the bashing is justified.
That feature film is coming out this year. It's the
oh gosh, yeah,
Kiss in Vegas. It's Kiss in Vegas.
No, it's not the one I'm talking about.
Wait, you mean the documentary?
No, there another supposed film a few years ago. You remember that? It was on your.
The documentary one is
Probably not. He wasn't even talking about that. But you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, he's incapable of not talking about things, and talks about them far too early.
A Kiss Saturday morning cartoon that's coming too. We said that a decade ago. Where the hell is that?
But that's
Not
always
that
been
I'm
his
expecting
problem.
it, but it's just bullshit.
But that's always been his problem, though, is that
It's
he's
bullshit.
he's one of these believers, though, that if he goes and says it, it's like almost he believes that once it's been out of his mouth, it's going to happen. It's almost like he believes that when he says it, that'll start some big thing happening in the background. Hey, Gene said something. It's a great idea. Let's do it. It almost seems like he believes.
I have a song called "I Want to Rule the World." That's the next rock and roll all night.
Yeah, well, I mean that's how he is.
that.
He always thinks that if he says it, it will happen, and he just needs to find out. Just like you said, Lonnie, the problem is that he needs to realize that just because he says it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And when you do that enough times, yeah, I know. I'm saying that you can't do that, because after a while, it's just going to be like the boy who cried wolf. No one's going to believe it after a while when you say anything, even when you do say something truthful. It's just too many times, giving us something that we hope for and then just being disappointed by it. And so, with that said, he probably deserves what he gets in that sense.
So continuously seeking approval, seeking attention, desperately seeking Susan. All right, and let's finish up with Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley does receive quite a bit of stick these days. Let us take out of the equation the voice. Let us take out of the equation anything that isn't related to personality. Does he deserve the stick that he gets? Paul Stanley, for me, has been the king of the band for so many years. He has been its heart and soul, its embodiment of its trials and tribulations. That, on one hand, I think that he says a lot of things that sometimes don't necessarily ring true or are wrapped in layers of cliches that they just become amusing. If you go to the 45 minutes of Paul Stanley stage raps on YouTube, that kind of speaks to that side of things. But I don't think he's as bad as Gene. He's much more measured. He's a politician, kind of the Ross Perot of the band. Where he doesn't really speak. He can give you a long answer that says absolutely nothing. So you end up kind of calling him out on that. And yes, it's right, but no, it's, you're not really bashing him. So I don't think Paul gets as much stick on that side of things. And again, we're not wanting to talk about the voice. That kind of leaves that whole side out. Mark, what's your thoughts on Paul?
Well, I think my opinion is going to be pretty similar to yours. I think that he's carried the band and been the leader of this group for a long, long time. And I think, unlike Gene, I think he's a lot more careful in his responses and a lot more careful about talking about projects that are supposedly up and coming than Gene is, for sure. I mean, he's been the last little while he's been saying that there's no plans for any album, in the near future. And I believe him before I believe Gene at this point. So I think that, if he does he get bashed? Yeah, sometimes, but I just always think it's for the wrong reasons. I mean, if anything, I'd let things slide more with Paul, because I think if it wasn't for Paul, there wouldn't be a Kiss. He helped really steer it now, and they've been floating around pretty good for the last, little while, and they've been doing things that, maybe wouldn't have happened if he didn't take such a strong hand and, took control of it. So I kind of let things slide a lot more with Paul. But, I if he gets bashed a bit here and there, yeah, maybe he does, but I don't think it's anywhere near as much as Gene, and he doesn't deserve as much of it as Gene does, I think, in my opinion.
I think his role as Captain Kiss, he steered the ship through the stormy sea, certainly gives him a lot more of a pass in terms of maybe some of the stuff that people could take him out on. So, Lonnie.
I think Paul is much more genuine than people give him credit for. And if you follow Paul on Twitter or something, you watch the things that he posts, he's very into his family. And he posts pictures the other day of them out on vacation or wherever they were. And I think that he has found the things that are really important to him at this time in his life. And he is who he is, and he's not afraid to be who he is. And he's not out there spouting off about, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'll believe Kiss is going to do a new album when Paul Stanley tweets, or I hear an interview of Paul Stanley saying, yes, we're in the process of writing music for a new album. I think Paul is careful with what he says. I was at a Q&A with him at the Indie Kiss Expo a couple years ago, and fans are asking him questions, and most of them are just BS questions. But there were some serious questions in there, and he chooses his words very carefully so he's not misquoted. And I think like I said, I think he's the most genuine person of the band. Does he answer some of those questions without answering them like a politician? Sure, absolutely he does.
Totally.
But you know what? That's part of the deal sometimes. Um, as much as I criticize Gene, I'm not going to criticize Paul. I think Paul is very genuine in who he is and says what he means, knows what's important to him. They're not doing the Kiss Cruise over Halloween this year. They're waiting until November to do it because Paul said that it's important to him that he wants to go trick or treating with his kids.
That's awesome.
I think that's freaking awesome. You know what I mean? I mean, he's not afraid, and maybe at 16 years old, I wouldn't think that's very rock star that Paul Stanley, doesn't want to play a concert on Halloween because he wants to go trick or treating with his kids. But you know what? That is freaking awesome. I mean, he is very genuine and he is who he is and he's not afraid to tell you about it. So.
Yep, and cooking with Paul Stanley is cool. So anyone who criticized that, forget it. It was cool. Ken, Paul Stanley.
Yeah, there's not much to complain about there. He's, like you said, he's been steering the ship pretty much, I think, at least from the maybe 80, early 80s up till now, where I think maybe Gene had a little bit more input in the 70s era, or maybe it was more of a team at that time between the two. But, and he was the quiet one, really. He was there on lots of interviews, but he didn't bash people, say bad things. It's not until maybe the last 10, 15, I don't know, or 10 years or so that he has kind of lit things out about some things he's disliked about maybe past members or whatever.
Or current members.
Or current members, even he'll come out against Gene.
All since Tommy joined the band. Just remember that. All since Tommy joined the band.
Right. So
remember, Gene wouldn't invite to the Paul's wedding.
Exactly. So, but there's really nothing. He's the guy that's kept this thing going, and we're lucky to have them still doing stuff and hopefully creating more things for us. Hopefully, music. To come and maybe more touring.
Yep. So, that's awesome. And I just want to say about Paul Stanley, I want to look like him when I'm that age.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So I got a lot of freaking work to do, but damn.
Start working out.
Just the way he lives his life, is awesome. He just stays fit. He works hard. He answers questions like a politician, I think it. But the CEO sometimes has to tell you you're fired without screaming it in your face. So, I've got no problem with him saying things that come out very neutral or turn the answer around in a different direction that he wants it. He's the ringmaster. He's going to guide everything where he wants it to go. So, I don't think he gets unfairly bashed. I think people do occasionally raise something about him quite legitimately. But for the most part, I don't think he gets that much bashing because people do, even if they've fallen out with the rest of the Kiss Army, if they've fallen out with their fandom, I think they always remember him because he's the voice of the band, because they know what he is to the band and they know how he's carried that weight on his shoulders for so many years. And after reading everyone's autobiographies, they get a better picture of the weight that he really did have on his shoulders. So, But I think let's wrap this up, there's a bit of bashing that goes on out there in Kiss fandom. Some fair, some unfair.
Some even on the Kiss FAQ.
No, you got the wrong site, dude. We're rose-tinted glasses and kittens and bunnies and all sorts of just happy shit, We're singing in the grass, dancing like the sound of music. Okay, we're not, but I don't I don't think we'd want to either. You know, a little bit of friction, a little bit of sand in your underwear doesn't hurt. So,
Ken, what do you think about that? You like sand in your underwear?
Hell no.
All right, so that's the episode, gentlemen. For everyone out there, thank you for listening. You know, chime in on the board or on Facebook on these topics, because, you know, obviously this one's kind of generated off of a previous episode and some of the comments that we do read. So we do love to read your thoughts on these topics that we address, because these podcasts are by the board for the board. So hopefully we will see you there, and thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you, guys. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.